Welcome to the Four Listeners Program. Welcome aboard, everybody. Thanks for checking us out this week. What up, everybody? I'm Spear. On the mics this week is the Z-Man. What is up, Z?
You don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave those kids alone.
Go ahead, do it.
Hey, teacher, leave their kids alone.
There you go. You had to finish that.
Right,
there was no. I wasn't going to let you go without it. On the other mic is the mighty Gantor. What is up, Gantor?
I feel dumber after that.
I sense a I sense a theme coming on here. Joining us this week is a guest, the lovely Lauren. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
This week, something must be done about higher education. Lauren, what must be done about higher education?
I think we need to revisit our views on what's worth the money in terms of higher education, especially in the realm of humanities degrees.
And why do you say that?
Well, I just feel like there's a lot of students going to school now. It's sort of an expectation, and they're leaving with enormous amounts of debt, and it's not necessarily getting them more money. Like over the course of a lifetime, they're earning more than just a high school graduate, but they're in all this massive debt for a philosophy degree. Do they really need that to enter the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, on average, for the 2013-2014 school year, tuition and fees on average for private colleges is just north of $30,000 a year. For state colleges, if you're a state resident, it's just shy of $9,000 a year, and if you're out of state for state colleges, it's just north of $22,000. That's not even counting room and board.
Yeah.
I mean, over 4 years, that's $120,000 to go to school. And are you really getting out of it what you put into it? Like, I know it took me years to pay off all of my student loans.
Right. Well, and then your student loans are probably not even touching what some of these students are taking out for things like, to become a teacher. And they're taking out more than they're ever going to make in a year. If you're borrowing quadruple the amount your annual salary is going to be, what does that mean for you in the long term?
Yeah, it means you're going to be in debt for the next 20 years if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in general, an average school teacher in the United States makes $55,000 a year.
That sounds high.
That's average.
That sounds really high.
That's average. In Pennsylvania, for an elementary school teacher, it's $56,000. For a middle school teacher or for a high school teacher, you're in the neighborhood of $58,000 to $61,000 a year. I mean, you're gonna spend $120,000 to get that kind of a salary versus somebody who pays the same kind of money with a science or technology kind of degree, and they're an average for a programmer nowadays. Starting is like 50, 60 grand just coming out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it goes up quick from there.
Right, and these are tenured teachers too, by the way. Right, when we talk about these averages, we're talking about people who have been in the system for years, and in many cases have to go and get secondary degrees or certificates just to get these jobs.
And then they get spitballs thrown at them, and they get fucking tax put on their chairs and shit.
Oh my God. I take a look at my kid's teacher. Like, I went to go see him for parent-teacher conferences last week, and he looked like I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's got like 15 6 and 7-year-olds in that class, and like, holy Jesus, how the hell? I have enough problems with one. You know what I mean?
You got to learn not to care.
But that's the thing. They care. They care so much too. It's really remarkable. I mean, Gantor, have you met your kids? Your kids are in kind of a preschool, right?
Kindergarten, preschool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have you met some of these people that have to deal with these kids on a day-to-day?
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. They can't pay them enough from the asshole kids I've seen in her class.
My wife goes sometimes to the school to help out, and she comes home with like a 1,000-yard stare. Like there was one day I came home from work, and she was just at the kitchen counter just chopping vegetables, and I walked in, I said, "Hey, honey," and she just looks up at me, and then looks back down and keeps chopping the vegetables, and I'm like, I just backed away slowly. But imagine that every day and getting paid not a lot of money to deal with that.
And you're talking about lower ed. This is not even like higher education. This is kids.
Yeah, I'm talking elementary school.
Which do you think is worse, though? What do you think it's worse, taking care of a bunch of 6-year-olds, a bunch of 12-year-olds, or a bunch of entitled 18-year-olds?
I mean, I would have to say it's worse taking care of the high school kids.
Yeah,
right?
I think high
Because,
school's probably worse.
I mean, the surly, ego-driven, fucking texting and whatever the hell else. I would just think that would probably be the world's worst job.
Well, yeah, they're all super entitled. They all think that they are the smartest person ever to walk the earth. And then they apply for colleges and they get rejected from half of them and they get a bit of a reality check.
And then they blame their teachers.
Yep.
What the fuck is that about?
Yeah, they blame the colleges. They're like, I'm smart enough for your school. And then they're mad that they didn't get in. But there's
Right.
too many kids applying for all of these colleges.
So I mean, is this kind of where we're at with this, Lauren? I mean, you talk about these degrees in humanities and whether or not you're going into a teaching position, or political science, or accounting, or anything along those lines. I mean, we're not talking about hugely paying jobs for these kinds of disciplines.
Right. Like, so there's a lot of parents that think, like, if I just get my kid into that school, they'll make the connections and that's how they're going to, get their way through life. But really what it is that most of these kids that get out of school, no one's going to care. Like, no one's going to give a shit where they went to school because they're just getting sociology degrees, and I'm not knocking it. That's what I got. And I feel like I'm a pretty well-rounded person. But did I think that I needed to go to one of the top-rated schools to get that degree? Absolutely not.
Is that because the jobs that people are going after are so super competitive?
Oh, yeah, I think absolutely. So I work in higher education. It took me 6 months to get a job in it. Like, if I talked to a lot of people in tech specifically that they lose a job last week, they've got 3 offers next week. For me, it takes 6 months to find one because 500 people apply for each of these positions in administration.
So here's a question for you, Lauren. Is there some sort of stereotype or stigma that's applied to a humanities degree versus
Any other degree?
any other degree?
Yeah,
I think absolutely.
That's the
Yeah.
career progression from the kids who can't hack it in the engineering degree. It's engineering, then it goes business, then it goes to something in humanities.
So-
There's a reason for that.
So here's a question. Fun fact. Does
Hold on,
anybody
hold on,
know?
let her answer the question. Answer a
Remember
fucking
which part I was
question.
gonna
Nobody,
All right,
nobody
well,
here, let
Gantor
her-
jumped
let
in
her
there.
answer the
Gantor jumped in
question.
there. All right, so go. So
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
answered it.
So I think mostly
Question's done, dude.
especially in hard economic times, people are going, well, you're getting a degree in what? What are you going to do with that? But you also have to think about where, like, the higher education institution really developed from. And that was from research institutions when it wasn't just about learning a skilled trade. It was about, like, an all-inclusive, holistic education. And we've really gotten away from that thinking. I think most people think you go to college, get a good job. They don't think about it as education for education's sake, where really that's what it is. Humanities degree is like to get into creative thinking, critical thinking, be a well-rounded person. And then for the most part, they tell you to look into something as a minor that's technically useful. Like, that's why you see a lot of people with business minors or a little bit of computer tech or anything along those lines.
That sounds totally backwards. You should be getting a real degree in something that you can actually get a job in, and getting your minor in a humanities topic to get your education for education's sake. Like, if you're going to get a scientist degree or a not a scientist degree, but like a like a statistics degree, and you want to get a minor in psychology so you know why people are making decisions they make, and you can do market research with that. That sounds a lot better than getting a psychology degree with a minor in statistics.
See, I could agree with that point to some extent, but think about how many jobs out there you don't actually need to have that much of a special focus. Like, the point of a humanities degree is not to have people become specialists. It's so that they have a more well-rounded idea of many different subjects. So I could probably move more easily
How do you
between
get that
careers.
from a humanities degree other than weird, irrelevant stuff that's still unemployable?
The argument here has always been about humanities versus STEM kind of classes, and STEM standing for the science, technology, engineering. Thank you,
And math.
and math. Science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's a truth that people who get these kinds of STEM degrees can earn 25%, 26% more money from a salary perspective than workers in the humanities. It's also true that demand for STEM jobs is outpacing the supply, right? Which is why that any halfway reasonably educated and or capable technology guy can find a job in 2 weeks.
So do you think that there's a lot of people going into the field that are just not able to hack it? Like, they
Oh yeah,
have
you should see the shit we get. We get fucking.
Absolutely.
We get PhD candidates from MIT or Harvard. I think it was Harvard actually, who can't pass this most simple tech test. This is a tech test that I asked my girlfriend, who was able to do it better than some of the people who are actually supposed to know the shit for their degree.
Well, hang on a minute. Once you get into the point where you're a PhD, you've become like a professional student.
Right, and you don't actually know how to do anything because you have never actually done anything. You know everything in theory,
Right.
but you've never done it in practice.
Right, you've never figured out the practical application for the knowledge that you have. So you give somebody a coding problem to do, and you give them FizzBuzz or something along those lines, and they'll go, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. That's exactly what our original tech test was, and this person couldn't pass it. It was unbelievable. I laughed my ass off.
There's a school of thought that the reason these STEM degrees are important is because people in these disciplines are driving creativity and innovation. And because technology is driving how society is moving, it's necessary to have more people get these types of degrees.
Well, I definitely hear that, and it's talked about a lot, especially amongst the higher ed master's degree that a lot of people focus on in my area. But the one complaint I hear from a lot of people is that all these people in STEM, they have the technical knowledge, but they don't have the management experience or ability, or it's lacking a little bit.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare that you find a tech person, an IT professional. It's rare that you find an IT professional who is capable of leadership. And by leadership, I mean somebody who's got communication skills. And by communication skills, I mean somebody who can put 2 or 3 words together in a sentence.
In a sentence in English.
In English, right? I mean, it's rare that you can find somebody who can, not only who is able to, but wants to stand in front and lead. And which is why I think you'll find that when you look at, the most successful CEOs, they all have, wait for it, humanities degrees. I mean, fun fact, Michael Dell was a pre-med student at the University of Texas at Austin before he dropped out, only to end up starting the Dell Computing Company in his garage.
Mm-hmm.
Former Carly Fiorina, former CEO of Hewlett Packard at
Isn't
Stanford.
She the one who ran Hewlett Packard into the ground?
At Stanford, she was a philosophy and medieval history major.
It all makes sense.
Medieval
history.
Robert Iger, running Walt Disney, was a communications major at Ithaca College. Sam Palmisano, former CEO of IBM, was a history major at Johns Hopkins. And you can't tell me that Sam Palmisano was a bad chief executive.
I don't know. Isn't IBM getting rid of their U.S. workforce?
You're amazing.
What?
What I'm pointing out is that these leaders, these chief executive officers, all had degrees not in a technology field, but in the humanities.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's a ton of people who do have tech degrees who still made it. You're just cherry picking the ones you want.
Yeah, what about Elon Musk? Dude's gonna build fucking spaceships, go to the moon, fly to Mars. Built an electric car, can cross the country.
And what's his degree in?
I don't know. I'm gambling on it not being humanities.
Musk got a bachelor's degree in economics from the Wharton School at UPenn.
There you go.
Well, I mean,
Look at the Google founders. Smart-ass dudes from Stanford.
Do we have any examples of tech people who went a different route and were very highly successful?
that's what we're saying. No, all these people we're talking about are all
Successful
tech
in
people.
what manner?
So, I mean, like if you start in tech, I feel like when you're in some of these fields, these STEM fields, you're picking a career and you're going to stick with it for the rest of your life, where the people who are picking these humanities degrees want more options. Maybe they're not going to be as highly paid, but they probably don't know exactly where they'll end up. We're not in the days of keeping a career or perhaps like a job with a certain company forever anymore. People change jobs, careers, 5 or 6 times.
That's because their jobs, careers either end, suck, or don't pay much.
Yep.
I don't know, you're just these days too, I think maybe I sound like an old woman, but like kids are young when they go into college. They go because they're supposed to. And then they don't know what the hell they want to do. They have to pick something because they're required to. They can't stay in college forever. And then they just pick whatever they are most interested in at the time. And then they graduate. They're like, what the hell was I thinking? And then they go back later and they get a different degree.
One of the podcasts I listened to was they were talking about, what's the value of a degree and if it's worth it. And one of the options that they'd come up with is, rather than spending all this money to figure out whether or not you like a job, try to get an apprenticeship in this, and instead of getting paid for working in a job, offer to work for free in the field you want to work, and see if you can find somebody who will actually mentor you. This has been traditional the way that a lot of crafts jobs have been, carpenters and plumbers and electrician, where they kind of get into a group and they'll train them. But I think that could work in other industries as well.
So they kind of try before you buy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that works well for both parties. If I'm going to be a mentor and I got a guy working with me who's awesome and is going above and beyond and taking the time to learn and actually doing the extra, going the extra mile to get shit done, that's great. That's showing initiative. That's somebody I want to work with, and that's someone who I can teach what I know, as well as put them in the right direction. They can learn on their own, as opposed to finding somebody who's now got a 4-year degree, and now I got to bring him in as a college hire, and the kid just Twitters, Facebooks, and jerks off all day in front of his laptop, and gets the work done.
So you're talking about someone that's coming straight out of high school and
Yeah.
and they know what they're interested in, and they go straight into an apprenticeship.
Yeah, or not necessarily know, but have at least have a guidance, have an idea of what they want to look at.
I mean, you can go to college and you could know what you want to do, or you could go to college and you could figure it out. And isn't that kind of the fun of college? Like somebody asked me the other day, would you go back to college and do it all over again, knowing what you do now, knowing what you know now? And I'm like, absolutely not. I mean, part of the fun of going to college was not knowing. If I did it now, knowing what I do now, I wouldn't be drinking nearly as much.
I'd have gone to a lot more classes.
Right.
You would have fucked a lot more orange chicks.
No. I was about to say that. In fact, I would have avoided more of those chicks.
Yeah, no, I would have done more things, I think.
No, I absolutely would have avoided certain
Dirty
things.
Yeah,
No.
things that are okay to do when you're in college.
Well, that's...
Can you imagine how much more awesome college would have been with the internet that we have now?
No.
Oh, God.
Or having money.
All the videos you could watch,
Oh, no. See, the problem isn't the
all
videos
the
that you would
videos you
watch.
could make.
No, yeah, the problem is the videos that people would take of you.
Yeah.
All the porn.
That's been taken of you.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, you're worried about people finding out about this podcast and you not being able to get a job. Imagine what would have happened if you're trying to graduate from college and there's something floating around the internet of you banging some orange chick.
Or the wall of shame with your
Who-
STD results.
Who is ever going to call you on that?
Who's ever going to call? What?
If you interview a dude tomorrow and you recognize him from a porn film, what are you going to say? You are not going to say a damn thing.
Dude,
You're either going to congratulate him or you're not going to bring it up because you'd be afraid of getting hit with a harassment lawsuit.
Of all the people we collectively know and all the porn that we've collectively watched, have you ever recognized somebody in a porno that you've seen?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Seriously?
No, I haven't.
You name any porn star, I bet you I couldn't pick her out of a lineup.
Well, that's because of the porno lights and the makeup.
And the cock in her mouth.
Right. Well, that would be you ask her, just puff your cheeks up a little bit. Let me see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Ass Digger 7.
God.
I remember you.
Ass Digger 7.
Yeah, you really need to see 1 through 6 to get 7, though.
Holy
you can't
shit.
just jump right into that.
You lose the whole story.
You lose the whole story.
Yeah,
It really loses the meaning, yeah.
So what gets done about this? So we like to do this on the show. We like to present a problem, and then we like to say what must get done about this. So what gets done about higher education?
Well, so there's a big thing now where they actually have to, like a lot of colleges have to put out their employability rates, right? So for certain programs that you're going after, they have to actually somehow measure what your odds or your likelihood of becoming employed after getting that certificate or that degree. I don't know that they can go that far with it, because how do you publish employability for, a philosophy degree? You can't really, but that's one thing that they're trying to do.
Wait, is it employability, like can you get a job, or employment statistics, like do you have a job?
Both. So they'll, like, your ability to get a job. Like, so schools will publish like the number of students that got a job within 6 months out of college, right? And then certain degrees will publish, their how many jobs are out there and
Sorry.
what.
Are you
Go ahead.
saying certain or certain?
Certain?
Are you from Philly?
No, I have
Jersey?
everyone makes fun of my accent. No, I'm from Cape Cod.
I'll be damned.
I swallow my N's. I say button,
Certain.
like button
But
your jacket.
you
I do
totally
that.
have it. I swear you're from Philly or Scranton or Jersey or
I
somewhere.
swear that I'm not. My family is from the Quincy and Hingham
Well,
area.
you know what? Maybe you were adopted.
I'll call my mother when I get off.
I'll ask her right now.
I think if something is to be done about higher education and specifically about the humanities, I think the stereotype needs to be removed. Right? I think Steve Jobs had it when he said that Apple was successful with their philosophy around putting together great products because it was a total company effort. It was everybody, from the accountants to the technologists to the designers, everyone working together to accomplish what they set out to with their vision. And who doesn't want to see beautiful stuff?
I like beautiful stuff.
Well, that's right. I mean, you can't have a world devoid of art.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I don't think we just don't need a lot of them.
Well, we need people who can
Fuck those
do
guys.
both of those things. Have you heard of there's like that movement, they're changing it from STEM to STEAM so that they're including the arts in it.
There
So
you go.
science, technology, engineering, arts, and
What
math.
a way for a bunch of fuck-loading freeloaders to piggyback on other people's success.
What the fuck, Ganthor?
Name a good art.
If you
Do you
get,
think hosting a podcast falls under the arts?
I don't think there's a way to. I don't think there's a way to categorize what we do.
Podcast is good.
Yeah, there's no way to categorize this exactly.
So
No,
name a good art.
music.
You gonna get paid in a career by going to college for a music degree?
Well, you get Berkeley, like you get some people who are really, really good, or Juilliard or something like that. But
But they don't all go
It's
in
far
and
and few.
become musicians. They work in the music industry.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I won't argue with you that the starving artist stereotype is real, right? And then if you go out trying to find a high-paying job in some of these disciplines, you're gonna struggle for a while. But it doesn't mean that you can't take what you know about music or about art or about history, and then turn it into another career.
Yeah, but do you need to go to college to get that learning in the first place? Couldn't you get an equivalent amount by reading books and studying on the internet if it's not directly relevant to the job that you end up getting?
I think you go study what you love. Lawrence said it earlier. People nowadays go to college to get a job rather than going to college to educate themselves. And for me, I would say, if you love doing something, go learn how to do it really well.
and I was gonna say is I have no problem with people doing what they love, but you know what? I love candy, and I love porn, and I love beer, but that's not my job.
Hey, you
Right.
can make a job out of beer.
Yeah.
There are people that
Yeah,
do
but
it.
if you could find,
You
if you
should
could find
talk
a
to
job-
Spears' mom, figure out how you can.
Oh my God.
A job out of porn.
So I mean, you can do all those things, and unless you're really, really good at it, it should be a hobby or it should be a side thing that you do and just for fun. The fact that you're like, I love kids, I want to go into education. The quickest way to hate kids is go into education.
No, the quickest way to hate kids is to have some. Except your own. I love my son. I do.
Wow, dude, I think you let that slip.
Well, start saving for college now because it's going to cost you
Oh,
like
see,
$400,000.
I think they'd be better off by learning a trade instead of going to college, as evidenced by the game of life. If you've ever played that,
The game of life with the little spinny wheel.
you have that decision whether you're going to go to college or whether you're going to go the other route. You remember?
I
Which I think they've
vaguely
removed
remember.
from current versions of the game. Actually,
Did they really?
I was like,
That's-
everyone just goes to college. They don't have an option.
I don't know. I feel like they might. I know for sure you don't get to sell your kids back at the end of the day.
Have you seen College Humor did one called The Realistic Game of Life? And so it's start college or start career. And so start college is your mom calls to ask how you expect to get a job once you have a degree. And if you start a career, your mom calls to ask how you expect to get a job without a degree.
Nice. Nice.
There it is.
I'll post that on the Facebook. 'Cause this is a great little reinterpretation.
So what do we learn? Z-Man.
If you're on an internship, don't jerk off at your laptop.
Good. Cantor.
It's not new, but once again, we've been reinforced with the idea that you hate your kid.
I don't hate my kid. I love my son, and fuck you.
It's not what you said.
I said I hate other kids.
He hates your kids.
I hate your kids.
You've never even met my kids.
I hate your kids anyway. I've seen pictures. And they look like you, and I hate them.
Wow.
Take that. Lauren, what did you learn?
I'm actually surprised to say that I thought that you all were going to say that my degree was completely useless, but I think you guys see some value in humanities, even if it isn't exactly
I thought I
worth
made my position
$200,000.
clear on that throughout the show. Guess I didn't do a good enough job.
Well, why don't you tell her how you really feel, Ganthor?
Well, no, now you're going to make me look like a jerk.
Well, you do a fair enough
I can
job
hear
of that
that.
on your own. What did I learn? I learned that it is criminal that teachers aren't paid like the professionals that they are. I mean, schools should be palaces. Schools should be cathedrals. And teachers should be remarkably well paid, and competition for teachers should be fierce. And it is criminal that that is not the case. And if that's
An
because,
airline stewardess should be hot, and math teachers should be competent, and blah blah blah. Fantasy world.
Well, that's my problem, right? I mean, the fantasy needs to become reality, and if that means we have to figure out a way to remove the stereotype around humanities or degrees in those disciplines so that people will pursue them, it will, I think, improve the lot of an awful lot of people. So if you think that teachers should be well paid, or if you think that humanities are a bunch of bullshit, why don't you go ahead and let us know on the Facebook page, facebook.com/4listeners or 4listeners.com. You can check out the show on Stitcher Radio or on iTunes. Just search for 4 Listeners and we'll pop right on up. Thank you, Lauren. You have been a wonderful guest.
Thank you.
And we thank all of you for checking us out this week, and we hope that you will check us out again next week. Thanks a bunch, everybody.
Hey!